I'm Andrew Gagan from Ausbiz. Great to have your company. Today we're talking to Atomo Diagnostics. It's a global leader in the design of medical devices for blood-based rapid testing for professional use and self-testing. The company's primary focus is to expand its global sales and continue to develop its proprietary rapid test device technologies. Its unique all-in-one rapid test devices have the ability to disrupt the global point-of-care rapid test market. And the company posted strong revenue growth in the first half of financial year 21. It's debt-free and with about $24 million in cash is positioning itself to move into newer, larger markets. Well, to talk us through the company's future plans, we're joined by Chief Executive John Kelly and CFO Will Soutter. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the company. For anyone that's not familiar with Atomo, we're a recently listed medical device company, and our whole premise for being here is to take existing technology that's not really that user-friendly and to deliver it to market in a much more integrated, convenient, user-friendly manner. And in doing that, we reduce down errors that are common in current test formats, and we also significantly improve the usability and the attractiveness of our solutions. We've had significant traction now globally across a number of different applications, including HIV and COVID, and also geographically. We sell now here locally in Australia, in Europe, in Africa, Southeast Asia, and we're moving into the US market later this year with a number of products. As was mentioned in the introduction, we're well capitalized, having completed a successful IPO in April of last year. And we're now well advanced in our journey to disrupt the market with an innovative technology and to scale it globally. And the premise for the product itself is quite simple. On the left was the market before Atomo came along. Hundreds of millions of these sold each year. And it's essentially a bits-in-a-box chemistry format rapid test solution. And they were developed for use in the lab. And over the last 10 years, they've started to migrate into doctors' offices, pharmacies, and in the home. And while the science itself is well proven, the usability is very poor and they're not fit for purpose in those kind of decentralized consumer and healthcare environments. And Atomo decided to essentially re-engineer that delivery mechanism and to get rid of all of the accessories and to integrate the functionality down into a single consumer-friendly, simple device. And that platform device supports a very broad range of clinical applications. We've commercialized HIV, COVID, and we have a sizable pipeline of Atomo products coming through, as well as a number of contracts with other diagnostic companies who buy our device and use it to upgrade the usability on their tests. The company was founded in 2010 with a view to really disrupting this market. We won some significant international awards in the early days. That generated a lot of interest, particularly from impact investors, the Global Health Investment Fund, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And with that recognition and capital, we were able to bring to market the world's first fully integrated HIV self-test. And that has been approved by the World Health Organization, one of only 4 products globally to get that approval. It's also the only HIV self-test that's been approved by the Australian TGA. And that really speaks to the next generation level of intuitive usability and reliability that our devices offer. Off the back of that, we were able to secure a very sizable distribution partnership with Mylan, now Vitaris, for more than 100 countries. We have, off the back of that success, opened up our OEM business. We sell now to a number of US and European companies that buy our devices pre-assembled for their own use. And we're now starting, as we get through 19 into 20, to scale out commercially the rollout of our products and platforms. And the IPO has given us the capital to continue to expand that manufacturing footprint, as well as to build new applications into the devices and to launch them. So we're very excited about the journey ahead of us.
So just a quick snapshot. As Andrew mentioned, the half-year results were very strong. We did 4.6 million in customer receipts, in customer revenue through to 31 December. To give some context, for the full year for FY20, we did 5.4 million in revenue. And in the prior year, FY19, we only did around $540,000. So we're on that growth pathway as as the company moves beyond the kind of R&D phase and into full commercialization. So So significant growth coming from a number of key areas. With that higher revenue and with the broader customer base, we were able to continue to improve our gross margins and lower our cost of goods. And so our gross margins for the half were around 55%, which delivered a gross profit of about $2.5 million. And importantly, at the operating cash flow level, we were very close to break even. We've continued to invest, as we said we would with the IPO funds, in manufacturing expansion and ongoing R&D, product development and entry into new markets. But nonetheless, close to breaking even from an operating perspective, and finished 31 December with close to $25 million of cash on hand. Just looking a little bit further at the revenue for the half, there was a split across COVID, HIV and our other OEM business, $2.6 million in COVID revenues, predominantly selling our device to NG Biotech in France for the production of antibody tests for sale into that French market. We did just short of $800,000 of sales in the HIV business, predominantly to Mylan Pharmaceutical, our global partner, Viatris now, for sales in Africa and other parts of the developing world. Important to note, there's no significant tender business in that. That's yet to come. That was small individual contracts into governments through Mylan's network. And then over $1 million in OEM business, particularly with our customer Lumos, who are beginning to increase the rollout of their Febridex test, which tests for viral versus bacterial infection. They're going through a US FDA process at the moment for that, so no FDA revenues in that yet. And in the COVID revenues, just to emphasise our contract for North America with Access Bio, there are no revenues from that contract in the first half. Those revenues are starting to flow now in the second half. So some significant items not yet in the first half numbers that will start to flow in the second half and into the back end of the calendar year. I guess just to re-emphasise that growth profile, you'll see there the chart, half-year sales revenue on prior comparable periods just shows the growth we're experiencing there.
So that first half of the presentation talks a little bit about the history of the product and the current status of our business. What we wanted to do was really focus on where we want to go as a business over the next couple of years, so the medium-term outlook and some of the drivers of some strategic growth that we see. So I think the first thing to note is that initially when COVID happened, a lot of diagnostic companies were quite opportunistic in how they tried to get their products into the market for COVID. What's starting to become apparent now is that COVID is a sizable long-term business opportunity, and we'll talk a little bit about that in some detail. Also, our HIV business, we now expect to see some very sizable growth over the next couple of years as these global tenders start to roll out. We'll also talk a little bit about the new products that we're looking to bring to market on our existing platforms and expand that menu on our platforms, both Atomo finished product as well as OEM. We'll talk a little bit about an expansion of our capabilities, particularly into the assay development and optimization side of the product, as well as continued manufacturing expansion. We'll also talk a little bit about our international expansion in terms of our sales and marketing footprint. And then we'll finish up just talking a little bit about brand awareness and how we intend to make Atomo a household name in the diagnostics industry. With regard specifically to COVID, the main point is that we now see COVID as a medium-term, potentially indefinite business channel. The vaccine rollout will see, we believe, a sizable increase in demand for antibody testing. Antibody testing really the only way to verify that someone has had the vaccine and has had an antibody response to the vaccine. The vaccine deliverables in Australia and the UK may well be delivered by the end of this calendar year, but it's going to be 3 to 5 years before the world has been adequately vaccinated and herd immunity globally has been achieved. And that means that there is a long-term requirement for antibody testing. The ability to have a travel bubble between Sydney and London isn't possible while London's still having inbound travel from parts of the world that haven't been vaccinated. So we do see, and we're already starting to see, governments now think about antibody testing as part of that. And to support that opportunity, we're now looking to, I suppose, look at our strategic long-term business for COVID. We've rolled out our own products in Australia, and we've secured significant revenue in the first couple of months locally. And that's despite a lack of solid government support for rapid testing, although that is starting to improve with time. We've obviously sold into the French market. We're looking to expand into other partnerships outside of France and Europe. We have a sizable take or pay commitment from our US partner, and they're expecting FDA approval imminently, although we do have that take or pay commitment underpinning that agreement, regardless of FDA success. And we're looking to expand geographically. We have a relationship with a partner in India that will be able to register the product off the back of the FDA in the US. And we're in advanced discussions to expand access to our devices for COVID specifically into China and Brazil. So we do see this as a long-term pillar of growth. Outside of COVID, the graph on the left is the expected HIV self-test demand. That's a forecast from the World Health Organization. The 2020 tender really didn't happen. That's been pushed into 2021, although we have been told that's now imminent. Atomo is only one of 4 products eligible for that tender, and we're very confident that when these tenders are announced in the next short period, that we'll be successful in being a significant player in that market. That's a market that's due to triple in the next 5 years. So it's a high volume opportunity for us, limited competition, and certainly we're very well placed with our partnership with Mylan and the usability of our product to be a leader in that. Outside of global health, we are focused on developed markets, particularly being a partner for the delivery of PrEP. PrEP is a rapidly growing drug treatment for preventative drug treatment on HIV. People on PrEP need to test 4 times a year to ensure that they are negative to stay on the program. At the moment, they have to go into a sexual health clinic. It's a half day out of their time every 12 weeks. We're now starting to look at home-based programs that can deliver self-testing and telehealth delivered channels, piloting that in Australia, but certainly with a view to expanding that into Europe and possibly look to take our product to the FDA approval for the US and enter that PrEP market in the US as well. Outside of COVID and HIV, which are core growth drivers in the near term, we do have a very well-regarded and usable platform of technologies. We've got manufacturing scale up now to support additional products. We're interested in utilizing antibody, which we think will be important for the confirmation of immunity and vaccine effectiveness over the next 3 to 5 years. And we've got several discussions ongoing with partners around commercializing tests in that sector. We are keen to bring forward a test for hepatitis C, both professional and self-test. And we've got some ongoing discussions around commercializing tests for liver disease and celiac disease. Celiac disease in particular, we think is a very strong consumer application, up to 2% incidence rates globally, and most people still largely undiagnosed. To support that home health market and the transition to e-health, we're well advanced with the commercialization of 2 technologies. One is a low-cost clip-in digital reader that supports a range of our products in the market. That would be used in doctor offices and community screening programs targeted at professional users. And then for the home health market, which has been in the US in particular, really accelerated by the advent of telehealth, we're validating a convenient home app that would allow users to step through the instructions for use in a multimedia format on an app, but more importantly, automatically capture that result, remove any results interpretation errors, and also provide full traceability to your healthcare provider, your employer, your insurer, depending on who's funding the telehealth channel. And that's a channel that makes a lot of sense to the healthcare profession because it's still under their control and it's still reimbursable. Regulators are comfortable with that channel because there's more professional oversight than over-the-counter self-test. And obviously, we think we've got the products and the solutions that really can take advantage of that opportunity, and we'll be looking to push into the US market, particularly with that solution. To support that opportunity, we've continued to invest in increased capacity. We will be looking over the next 12 to 18 months to bring into our core capability portfolio strip optimization and manufacturing so we can make a finished product from start to finish. In the past, we've either sourced strips on market or entered into joint venture or OEM arrangements. We think the ability to take that in-house adds a lot of strategic value to the business. We'll be also looking to offer customers, particularly US customers, a US-made supply chain solution, which we think will be increasingly important as we roll into the US market. We've got our HIV facility now in South Africa, fully validated by World Health and TGA and ready to support that anticipated tender business. And we're in discussions with bringing some of these capabilities also onshore so that we can continue to support our R&D and new product development activities locally. That picture is the 2nd generation high volume blister machine that's currently being built in Sydney. We already have one machine running in the US, so we are well placed to continue to expand our technical capabilities and our ability to make low-cost product at volume globally.
So just looking at the global market, as we've talked about, we're looking to push increasingly into the US. In addition to having some manufacturing capability there, we're also looking to enter through OEM contracts. We've obviously got the Access Bio contract in place for COVID. They're going through the FDA EUA process right now. We have a contract in place with Lumos for their FebriDx test, and they're going through the 510K process. So on the back of those approvals, that gives us great leverage in the market there to show other potential OEM partners that this platform can achieve regulatory approval through FDA, and indeed can achieve a higher level of regulatory approval than other products on the traditional bits in a box format. So for example, Access Bio is going for a point of care clear waiver, which means that their approval will open up markets that other antibody testing can't access because of their more limited regulatory approvals for lab use only. So that's a great precedent to set to give us the opportunity to do other deals in the US, as well as to look at launching our own products through that regulatory channel and into that very substantial market where the US, accounts for sort of more than half of the point of care market globally. In addition to that, we're obviously engaged in discussions for other parts of the globe where there are significant populations and significant challenges. And so China, the potential to enter China for COVID through an OEM contract where we would sell our platform into that market. And Brazil, as John mentioned earlier, that they've clearly got some major challenges there right now with COVID, with a fairly slow vaccine rollout, with some fairly substantial issues across the country, and in some localized areas, very, very problematic. So we're looking at entering that market as well in the near term. We've talked a little bit about Europe and the rest of the world. Clearly, scaling up manufacturing to support these international expansions is a key plank of where we're going over the next couple of years. So I guess just to wrap up before we take some questions, in summary, when we came to the market to IPO last year, the idea was to raise the funds to really take this innovative Australian R&D and product development to the globe, and that's been significantly accelerated by the funding coming in from the IPO and also the opportunities created by COVID, and that's given us a great chance to show the world, what Atomo is about and how useful these products can be. So we're going to continue on that journey. We're going to expand our field of reach and operation, and obviously in great shape to do that with a very strong balance sheet and a very healthy trading position. So appreciate your listening and your support, and happy to take some questions.
John, Will, thanks very much for that presentation. And just a reminder to everyone watching that if you do want to submit a question for the Q&A session, you can do so by typing it into the Q&A panel on your screen. Okay, to the first question, John and Will, NG Biotech replaced Atomo manufactured device by setting up their own manufacturing. How much of a concern is that for you, that a partner can decide to manufacture themselves and effectively become a competitor?
Well, I don't know that that's entirely correct. NG Biotech in France always had their own strip manufacturing capability, and we supply them our device that they then can use to turn their strip into a finished product on our platform. So they are a customer of ours, not a competitor. We do have the ability to buy back the finished product, particularly for markets where we listed as the manufacturer, and we've done that for the antibody test for Australia. So our relationship with them is synergistic, and their manufacturing capability augments our finished product capability because they manufacture that strip for us, or we sell them our device for their finished product. So it's a symbiotic relationship rather than a competitive one, if that makes sense.
All right, well, that probably leads into the next question then. How is Atomo protected in terms of intellectual property? What prevents other competitors from producing a similar product?
Oh, well, a lot of things, we believe. The first thing is we were really the first company to come to the rapid test market and say that, we're not so focused on the chemistry, it's actually about the usability. And we were the first company to try and integrate these different functionalities into a single device, and a lot of our IP relates to that integration and automation of the procedure. So we were the first company really to come along and say, let's get these bits into a device and let's make them consumer friendly. So our IP is quite high level in terms of the collection of blood delivery and buffer delivery into a single device. We're the only company in the world that has an integrated solution that's been commercialized. The IP has been granted very extensively in not just in Australia, Europe, the US, but China, Brazil, Russia, India. We've gone for a very broad level of coverage, and on top, which has been granted, and on top of that, we've got 10 years of pretty sophisticated proprietary process development. The blister manufacturing machine we developed from scratch. It didn't exist before we came along. We developed our own proprietary microfluidic system that's state of the art. So unless you've got 60-70 million, a really, really top rate engineering team, you're not going to get a product to market. And even then, I think to get around our IP would be extremely difficult. So we think it's well protected in the market. And we've also got first mover advantage and blue chip customers, and that helps enormously as well.
Just to add to that, Andrew, I think one of the core components of our IP is that blister machine that makes the little sachet to provide the buffer in the Pascal device. That machine sits within a secure compound that we own and run in the US. So that machine is protected practically as well as from a patent perspective.
Okay, thanks for that. Just a very specific question in regards to your products, as you've outlined a number of them there. Can you tell us what the per unit price is of each product?
Well, the per unit price varies enormously, and that's because it's a platform product that's sold into different markets and different applications. So, our finished HIV self-test retails in Australia for a magnitude more than the same product sells into large global health tenders. And in the global health market, we've got reduced margins, but significantly higher volumes through tender commitments. So that transfer price for us is very elastic, and obviously depends on whether it's an OEM arrangement or a joint venture or a finished product. So there's no number. It's a pretty sizable range. What we do know is that we want to develop and have been quite successful developing a blended business that covers OEM, covers different products, covers different territories, and we've seen our gross margin, our aggregated gross margin go from the low 40s to the high 50s, and that reflects economies of scale and a maturing of the business, and we think we can see further improvements there. So I think the overall gross margin of the business is helpful.
Okay, now just in terms of the US market, a question in regards to the US FDA. Did it reject the emergency use authorization for Atomo's products last year?
No, it didn't reject them. That application was submitted in December. There was an acceptance of that submission by FDA. That submission is ongoing, and the latest we've heard from Access Bio is that they're expecting approval this side of 30 June. That process is ongoing. There's been no objection or no major issues to come out of that review that I'm aware of.
I think it's important to be clear that the FDA often asks for more information, and that's common. So there was a bit of an exchange of, can you provide a bit of this and a bit of that throughout the early part of this year, but that's just part of their review process. The same thing happens here in Australia with the TGA. It's very common for the regulators to do that. So we're just going through that process in the ordinary course.
I think the other point to note is that Access Bio's commitments to us under the contract sit outside of any FDA approval. They've committed to a 2 million unit take or pay, and there's a payment clause in there that obligates that contract regardless of whether they get FDA approval or not. Now, that notwithstanding, they are very confident that approval will be coming.
And are you seeking FDA approval for your HIV tests?
We are giving it some serious consideration now. Obviously, having had 2 of our products go to FDA through other partners' investment is a very cost-effective way for us to get the platform approved. And off the back of that, it makes the approval of our own products much easier and more straightforward. So HIV and COVID are 2, and we're also very interested in a number of consumer tests as well. I think getting the COVID approval and the Febridex approval via Access Bio and Lumos is a really good stepping stone for us to look to bring our own products to market. There's only one other approved HIV test in the US market. It doesn't perform, we don't believe, to the same level as ours. So, we're very confident we can be successful in that market with HIV.
Okay, just in terms of distribution partners, are you expecting a few more to be added in the future, and whether that would be in the existing or a new market?
Well, we've mentioned that we're looking to try and see if we can get into both China and Brazil this year. We already have a number of US customers. We think that US customer base will expand based on two things. Firstly, the approval of the platforms in the US. Secondly, our efforts to actually grow a scalable US business is a priority. So I think we'll see additional customers in the US, new customers in new regions like Brazil and China, and we'll continue to also focus on making sure that our products are the market leader here in Australia as well.
As far as exploring other markets are concerned, China, what are the timelines involved, particularly as far as regulation, those barriers there?
Yeah,
diagnostic competitors and the like.
We're in discussions with a large listed Chinese company. They have a number of rapid tests already approved in the China market. So for them, it's a case of looking at how they can use their existing approval and our platform as an upgrade rather than a new application. So obviously, if they're able to use their existing approval and have this as an improvement rather than a new product, then that significantly reduces the China FDA process. We're still waiting for some feedback on that, but certainly we'd be keen to try and get into that market this calendar year.
Just further to that question about NG Biotech, is the agreement, now that the agreement is non-exclusive, are you considering selling the AT1 brand and maybe test directly into the EU market?
Yeah, we're looking at a number of options. One of them is starting to sell our own branded version of the product into that market. We're also in discussions with a couple of other non-French European companies that have existing COVID business that might be of interest to us in terms of a partnership. So we certainly do think we'll be able to announce some non-NG progress in Europe in the coming months.
All right, and just looking forward, any extension of the market finance as well as products?
Sorry, what was the question?
Of the extending your market finance, perhaps that's just a question coming to us further into the year.
I'm not 100% sure what the question is. If the question is, are we raising additional capital or looking at different ways to fund the business?
That's the aim of the question, yes.
Yes, okay. Look, we because of where we stand at the moment, close to $25 million in cash and close to break even at the operating level, we don't need to raise capital. We're in very good shape from that perspective, and we have continued to invest as we said we would in the use of funds in the prospectus. So that's on track. If anything, that's ahead of schedule because of the accelerated ramp up in manufacturing. That said, where the right circumstances come along to do something that's strategic and adds value to shareholders, then it may be that some capital is raised in association with that. But we don't need to do that. That will be done on a case-by-case basis where it makes sense.
Okay, look, I'm afraid that technology is beating us just as far as your audio is concerned. Nonetheless, fantastic you can give us that presentation. John Kelly, Soutter from Atomo, thanks so much for joining us on the Virtual Investor Conference.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Andrew.